All right, so in this lecture, we're going to be talking about shape, or also known as shape language, okay? Now, everything that we see and draw can kind of be broken down into three basic types of shapes, okay? And that is going to be triangles, squares, and circles. So squares could be rectangles or squares, and circles it could be ovals and so on and so forth, but everything we see can kind of be broken down into these basic shapes. And each of these basic shapes kind of have a certain feel or different ideas associated with them as a symbol. So for example, triangles, they tend to be sharp, dangerous, fast, aggressive, confident. If we think of some things that have a lot of triangles in them, you can think of fighter jets, very pointy, lots of sharp edges that make them feel very aggressive, very quick, right? Spaceships, a lot of times we associate with that. Or if we look at the animal kingdom, you could see sharks, crocodiles, a lot of things that have all these triangle shapes look very scary and aggressive and dangerous because we associate these triangles with those ideas in our head, okay? If we look at squares or rectangles, they tend to be associated with being solid, confident, sturdy, authoritative, or even sometimes dumb. So if we look at some things like a building, for example, most buildings are pretty square and they feel really solid, right? If we look at the type of designs they have in a lot of sci-fi things, sometimes when they want a ship to feel really massive and solid, it'll have a lot more square edges than the smaller, faster ships, which have a lot of triangles. If we look in the animal kingdom, you can see elephants. They have a lot of squares going along in them, and we'll look at some pictures and I'll trace them out so you can see what I'm talking about. And then the last one is circles. So circles, they tend to make us feel soft, safe, innocent, fun. You can also add to that list divine. Sometimes if you're trying to create a religious sort of feel or symbol or divine feeling, circles are used for that as well. And then also circles tend to become the center of attention in a lot of things. That's where a lot of people tend to focus if there's a circle in your image. So let's go through and start looking at some of these. So this one is obviously going to be triangles. So if we look here, we'll trace some of these out. Make sure we got a good brush. There we go. So let's start with the crocodile. You could see he's made up almost completely of triangles, right? All of these fins on his back are all triangles. His tail is one big triangle. Even his feet kind of come into triangles. His claws are all triangles. All the spikes on his back, right? Pretty much his whole body is made up of triangles, okay? And he looks the part. He looks aggressive. He looks dangerous. He looks like he'd bite your hand off, right? Let's look at the wolf. Same thing. Lots of triangles. Even the shape of his mouth is one big triangle. His nose is a triangle shape, right? His ears, okay? Now, obviously, not everything in the image is going to be exactly only one thing, right? There's lots of different shapes that make stuff up, and you have to mix and match to get what you're looking for. Just make sure you're doing it consciously and being aware of it, because the more aware you are, the more deliberate you can be in your designs. Same with the shark. If we look at him, right? Triangles everywhere. His whole body is basically two big triangles. His fins are all triangles. I mean, a shark is basically just straight triangles, okay? So those triangles. Let's go on to squares. So we have some animals here that are basically squares. This bulldog, just looking at him, he is just a bunch of blocks, right? A bunch of rectangles. His muzzle is basically a square shape. His head, right? His legs are just big long rectangles, okay? And then his body. Now, obviously, this bulldog is not a perfect square, right? He has lots of curves. His head is not a perfect rectangle. It kind of curves down. But the overall shape that we get from the impression of it is kind of a box shape, right? Same with his body. It obviously has curves. It's not a perfect, like if we trace it out, it's pretty curvy in reality, but the overall impression it gives is a box compared to other things, right? So same with the elephant. Head is a box, ears are pretty box-like, its body, pretty big box, its feet are just big rectangles, right? Lots of boxes. And then same with the tortoise, definitely a huge box. His feet, just big old huge tree trunks of feet, box head, pretty boxy body, right? So that's box, okay? Or squares, rectangles. And then the last one we'll look at is circles, okay? So like we said, circles can be cute, fun, safe, right? Not polar bears, excuse me, panda bears. They're huge bears, right? I mean, they should be scary. It's a bear. But they aren't. They look so cute because look at them. They're full of circles. Only circles everywhere. His eyes have big oval shapes. His muzzle is a pretty circular type shape. His ears, his head, even like his paws and everything are pretty ovally, right? There's nothing on him that's really super sharp angles or, really boxy. He just feels fluffy and fun to be around, right? So circles can have a pretty significant impact on our perception of things. Same with this little baby penguin, right? This big ovals, these eye areas are big circles, right? They make him look adorable. And then same with the ladybug. Most bugs are kind of icky and gross, but something about the ladybug makes him seem a bit more disarming, and that's because he's made up of completely circles, right? His body is made up of circles, and then on his body he actually has circles printed onto his body. In the animal kingdom, that's to help him warn other animals that he doesn't taste good to eat, but to us, it just makes him look disarming and somewhat cute. So when you're drawing and painting and doing stuff, make sure you're keeping that in mind. What do you want? What's the predominant shape you're going to be using, or what do you want people to feel? Is your drawing supposed to be like, are you drawing a big, solid, sturdy building that's supposed to be like a warehouse, and you're probably going to want to use a lot of rectangular shapes? Are you drawing like some sort of a predator that lives in the jungle that's really fast and aggressive? You're probably going to want to use triangles, right? So it just depends on what it is you're going for, but just make sure you're deliberate about it instead of just kind of letting whatever come into your head just go through without being processed, right? Because that's going to help what takes you from an amateur to a pro is not just having like a stream of consciousness, not even thinking about what you're drawing, but being able to make deliberate decisions about your sketches that are going to help improve their quality quite a bit. So that's it for this lecture, and I'll see you guys in the next one.